Let's start with our first news. Joe Rogan recently broke down the Ilya versus Justin Gaethje matchup at the White House cage. He explained the size difference and how it could impact the fight. When you see Ilya and Justin next to each other, you realize Justin is quite a bit bigger, a big cat, and that makes this matchup a very different kind of fight. Joe says it is not the same as the Oliveira fight, but notes how Oliveira dominated Max before showing how dangerous he is as a beast in MMA. He emphasizes Ilya handled that level of pressure with complete discipline, focus, and elite skill, becoming one of the most complete fighters in the sport. He also points out Ilya did not even start as a striker, originally coming from a grappling base and evolving into a dominant all-around force. According to Rogan, the most compelling matchup for Ilya remains Arman. And if Ilya gets past Justin, the stakes become even higher for his legacy. If Justin beats Ilya, it would be one of the greatest upsets ever seen in the division, and a defining moment in MMA history. Rogan also highlights how Ilya brings a rare mix of precision timing and calm pressure that makes him extremely difficult to read. He notes that both fighters carry knockout power, which makes this potential clash extremely dangerous from the opening bell. The breakdown suggests that size alone will not decide the outcome, because Ilya has proven he can neutralize bigger opponents with technique and fight IQ, while Justin remains one of the most explosive threats in the lightweight division, making this matchup one of the most anticipated fights in recent memory. This conversation continues to build massive hype among fans worldwide and analysts alike today watching. Move on to another news at the start. Chaos is building around Conor's return to the UFC. First, reports coming through the NY Post suggested that Conor was pushing for a Max Holloway fight to be set as a 3-round bout, even though the fight was being discussed as a potential main event. That immediately raised questions across the MMA world, because main events are almost always scheduled for 5 rounds, making this request unusual and highly debated. On top of that, the bout itself was being targeted at welterweight, reportedly at the request of Conor's team. That detail alone already changes the entire structure of the matchup, since moving divisions impact speed, power, and overall fight dynamics. Now, the same outlet has added another twist to the situation, claiming that Conor was actually asking for a 3-round fight not against Max Holloway, but instead against Michael Chandler. That shift in opponent speculation has only added more confusion around what is really being negotiated behind the scenes. At this stage, there is still no clear confirmation on whether Conor wants a 3-round fight or a 5-round fight. And there is also no official word on which opponent is truly locked in for his return this summer. Every new report seems to change the direction of the conversation, leaving fans and analysts trying to piece together what the final decision will actually look like. What has been confirmed more clearly is that Conor's comeback will not take place at lightweight. That division change alone already reshapes the entire landscape of potential matchups, especially considering how stacked and competitive lightweight currently is. With that move, questions are now being raised about what version of Conor fans will actually see when he steps back into competition. Some believe the change in division is a strategic move to optimize power and durability, while others think it could be about finding more favorable matchups after a long layoff. Either way, the uncertainty surrounding the fight format, opponent selection, and weight class has turned his return into one of the most talked about stories in combat sports right now. Every update seems to raise the stakes higher, with no final clarity yet on how this comeback will officially take shape. Move on to another news at the start. Kamaru Usman has finally broken his silence on the Colby-Covington-Raf clash, and the situation is starting to gain serious momentum. After Colby's dominant win over Dylan Danis, he went on to call out several big names, including Khamzat, Arman, and Usman himself, trying to spark interest in high-level grappling matchups. In his latest appearance, Kamaru did not shut down the idea at all. In fact, he expressed clear interest in facing Colby on the RF mat and said it would be a fun and competitive matchup between 2 elite wrestlers. However, he also pointed out a major obstacle that could prevent it from happening. According to him, the UFC currently has a rule that stops active roster fighters from competing in other combat sports events like freestyle wrestling while still under contract. He explained that this rule makes it extremely difficult to book the fight, even if both athletes are willing. On the other side, Colby has already stated that he plans to sit down with the UFC to discuss possibly changing the rule or getting an exception, arguing that fans want to see elite-level wrestling matchups between current UFC athletes. This back and forth has created real buzz around a potential Colby versus Usman grappling clash. Both fighters are known for their elite wrestling backgrounds, strong takedown defense, and high-level control on the mat, which makes the matchup technically fascinating for fans and analysts alike. It is not just about striking or cage fighting, but pure grappling skill at the highest level. A clip from Kamar's response also adds more context to his mindset. He mentioned that he believes the UFC rule states that two active fighters cannot wrestle each other in outside competitions, something he admitted could make things complicated. He also questioned whether this has ever been done before, while acknowledging the uniqueness of the RAF platform. He praised RF for putting together strong cards and highlighted how the promotion is creating opportunities for Olympic champions and world champions from different nations to explore new competitive formats. According to him, this is opening doors for athletes to see alternative paths in combat sports and grappling competition. The overall situation is now building real anticipation, as both fighters appear open to the idea, but organizational rules remain the biggest barrier standing in the way of making this clash a reality. Move on to another news at the start. Georges St-Pierre still believes Khamzat is a better fighter than Sean Strickland, even after his loss at UFC 328. In a recent interview with Mike Bond of MMA Junkie, GSP broke down the performance and gave a detailed assessment of what happened inside the fight. He pointed out that Khamzat's cardio visibly faded as the fight progressed, especially after a strong start. According to him, it was an incredible performance from Strickland, who forced Khamzat to work extremely hard just to maintain control. He explained that Strickland's pressure and defense made every position difficult, turning the fight into a real test of endurance and strategy. GSP noted that Khamzat looked very tired after the first round, and when he shot for a takedown in the second round, he ended up on his back, which he described as a major turning point in the fight. From that moment, the momentum clearly shifted, and Strickland was able to capitalize on the situation. He emphasized a key philosophy in combat sports, saying that nobody is invincible. In his view, it is not always the best fighter who wins, but the fighter who performs best on the night of the fight. He compared it to other sports, where performance under pressure often determines the outcome more than overall skill level. Despite the loss, GSP made it clear that he still considers Khamzat a better fighter overall than Strickland. However, he also acknowledged that on that specific night, Strickland executed his game plan better and deserved the win. He added that Strickland could potentially repeat that performance in a rematch if the conditions are similar. He further explained that being a champion requires the ability to perform when it matters most. According to him, the number one quality of a true champion is consistency under pressure, especially in high-stakes moments where everything is on the line. Additional comments also referenced TJ Dillashaw, who suggested that Khamzat did not look like himself at UFC 328. Questions were raised about his energy management and overall rhythm throughout the fight, as analysts continue to break down what went wrong and what can be learned from the performance. Move on to another news at the start. The debate around Khamzat's performance at UFC 328 continues to heat up, and now Arman has weighed in with a very strong opinion. The main question being discussed is how much Khamzat's difficult weight cut impacted his performance. Many are asking, if he had not struggled so heavily to make 185 pounds, would he have completely dominated Strickland instead of losing a close fight? During his camp, Khamzat's teammates repeatedly claimed he was absolutely overwhelming sparring partners, running through training sessions, and looking unstoppable over multiple rounds. Because of that, some believe the version of him seen on fight night was not his full potential. When Arman was asked about this, he echoed that same belief. According to him, the weight cut played a major role in the outcome of the fight. He suggested that the extreme difficulty of making weight may have drained Khamzat and affected his energy levels inside the cage. However, Arman also made a controversial statement. He felt that Khamzat should have been announced as the winner. He explained that in training, Khamzat was doing 5-round sessions with no breaks, going through 25 minutes of non-stop pressure against everyone. Based on that, he believed Khamzat had the ability to maintain dominance beyond the first round in the actual fight. Arman said he felt Khamzat could have done at least 4 more rounds at a similar pace, but the fight did not reflect that version of him. He described it as a close fight, but emphasized that in close situations, he believes the champion should retain the advantage unless the challenger clearly takes over. He added that when a fight is tight, the contender must do enough to unquestionably take the belt, not leave any doubt in the judges' minds. According to him, that is how title fights should be judged when the rounds are extremely competitive. Arman is not the only one sharing this opinion. Even outside the MMA world, discussions have surfaced supporting the idea that Khamzat may have edged the fight. During a recent interaction with Neon, the influencer also suggested that the result could have gone the other way, or even been scored as a draw. The conversation quickly turned into a wider debate about judging standards, with opinions split on whether Strickland truly won or whether Khamzat's early dominance should have been enough. In the end, Arman concluded that the weight cut was the biggest factor influencing the outcome, reinforcing the idea that Khamzat may not have been at full capacity on fight night. Move on to another news. At the start, Nate Diaz has reportedly been involved in an altercation with the Team Khabib camp ahead of the massive Netflix MMA card. The event is already drawing huge attention, headlined by Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano, with Nate Diaz scheduled to face Mike Perry in one of the most anticipated crossover-style matchups of the night. In a recent interview with Russian channel Ushadeka, Umar Nurmagomedov opened up about what happened during a backstage incident just hours before the event. According to him, Nate Diaz initially walked past Khabib Nurmagomedov, Islam Makhachev, and himself without saying a word. At first, there was no interaction, and the moment seemed calm. However, Umar claims that once Diaz had created some distance and security was nearby, his behavior changed. He allegedly began pointing and shouting across the room in their direction, escalating the tension inside the backstage area. The situation quickly became more intense, with both sides aware of each other, but not engaging physically. Despite the rising tension, Khabib and his team reportedly chose not to respond. Umar explained that they have dealt with similar situations involving Diaz in the past, and in their view, there was no reason to escalate things further in the moment. They remained composed and avoided any direct confrontation. Even with emotions running high, the incident never turned physical. Security and event staff quickly stepped in, separating everyone before it could escalate into something more serious. The situation was contained, but it immediately added more drama to an already high-profile fight night. Umar described the moment by saying that when Diaz walked past them, he did not do anything physical. However, he suggested that if Diaz truly wanted to engage, he had a clear opportunity to do so at close range. Instead, he chose to move away and shout from a distance, which Umar interpreted as initiating the confrontation verbally rather than physically. He also made strong remarks about past history, claiming that they had already dealt with Diaz years ago when they previously met, referencing a past encounter where tensions were also high. Meanwhile, Umar continues to prepare for his own career path, targeting a return to the octagon in the summer as he aims to stay active in the bantamweight title picture. He last competed at UFC 324 in January, where he secured a dominant unanimous decision victory over Figueiredo, keeping his momentum strong within the division's elite ranks. Despite that win, he is still searching for a defining matchup that could push him directly back into title contention, as the division continues to evolve with new challengers and rising contenders making their case for a shot at the belt. Move on to another news at the start. Arnold Allen has gone off ahead of his matchup with Melquiz El Costa, promising fans a statement performance and entering the fight with clear frustration and strong motivation. He made it clear that he is not just looking for a win, but a way to reassert himself in the featherweight division after recent setbacks. Allen admitted he is feeling genuinely pissed off heading into this bout, saying he wants to fix the mistakes from his recent performances and remind everyone exactly who he is at the elite level. The pressure around him has been building, and he appears determined to respond with a dominant showing inside the cage. He also opened up about his controversial loss to Movsar Evloev, saying that the result still bothers him deeply. Allen believes he should have been awarded the victory in that fight, and the decision continues to weigh heavily on him. That loss has become a major talking point in his career, especially as Evloev has continued to rise through the rankings, with Movsar now being discussed as a leading contender to potentially challenge the featherweight champion after recent wins. The frustration only grows stronger for Allen. He feels the fight outcome shifted momentum at a crucial time, and that it may have changed the direction of his own title path. At the top of the division, the champion continues to separate himself as one of the most consistent forces in the sport. Alongside Joshua Van, he remains one of the only active champions with a title defense on the current roster, highlighting just how active and dominant he has been compared to other champions in the UFC. He is also currently the longest reigning champion, holding the belt for 396 days, continuing to build one of the most stable and impressive championship runs in recent memory. His consistency has set a benchmark across divisions, making every contender's path to the title even more difficult. During the interview segment, Allen was asked a direct question about which loss he would want back the most if he could choose only one. Without hesitation, he pointed to the fight with Movsar Evloev, not because of personal issues, but because of how strongly he felt about the result. He explained that he truly believes that decisions should have gone his way, and certain moments in the fight still stand out as missed opportunities. He referenced specific situations that he felt were unfairly judged, including grappling exchanges that he believed were not interpreted correctly. Allen emphasized that it was not about excuses, but about feeling like the result was taken from him in a very close contest. He believes the fight could have changed his entire trajectory, and that is why it still sticks with him more than any other matchup in his career.